This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Monday, April 24th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Good evening, and thanks for joining us. CBC News has learned women's shelters across Canada are set to lose millions of dollars in federal funding. Many say the money has kept them afloat through the pandemic and helped save lives. Now they're worried about how to continue supporting women fleeing violence. Maria von Stackelberg reports.
This women's shelter and more than 600 across Canada saves lives.
I was fleeing abuse, and at the same time I was homeless in my own reserve. And I came here and I didn't know anybody, just one person.
Anne Wesley now works here.
I know what these ladies are going through because I was one of them.
As violence against women rose in the pandemic, the federal government provided $300 million to fight it. Nearly half went to shelters like these. But now that money is set to dry up.
The funding that we've gotten during COVID has alleviated suffering. And the absence of it will mean that there will be suffering.
Shelters use the money to hire extra staff, renovate facilities, provide programming like childcare, and help with basic needs like food and medicine.
We've been able to buy clothing for women who've had to flee and had nothing but flip-flops and a pair of pajamas on when they got here.
On average, each shelter received just over $100,000 extra a year. Money they say is still needed, even as the pandemic wanes.
The recovery for women in terms of healing, in terms of family law and navigating the systems is far from over.
As of now, Ottawa has no plan to continue the funding.
I will not say at this point that I won't extend funding. I think these are decisions that are being made, but I will say and continue to say to the organizations that we've had their back.
Women's shelters get most of their money from the provincial and territorial governments.
It's enough to maybe keep their lights on and keep the building functioning. These shelters are always underfunded.
Unlike most federal grants, this extra money from Ottawa was seen as vital because shelters could use it for their daily operations.
It was a recognition that the work you're doing is life-saving. You don't have to come up with a new and innovative way of doing it.
This funding is being cut despite recommendations from the inquiry into the mass shooting in Nova Scotia. It calls domestic violence an epidemic that requires pandemic-level funding. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
Here in Saskatchewan, people who run the shelters for women and children are very concerned about losing federal funding. Over the past 3 years, 11 organizations in our province received a combined total of $3.8 million from Ottawa. The head of the Provincial Association of Transition Houses and Services says without that subsidy, shelters have to cut programs and scrape to get by.
And what I've seen just in the last few months is many of the shelters have gone back to having to fundraise to cover their operational costs. And so the attention of the staff, the attention of the executive directors is split. They can no longer focus on the core work that they're here to do. During the pandemic, shelters stayed open. They were an essential service, even if they weren't, officially labeled as such. They never closed down. Those are life-saving services. They needed to be there. And at that time, the federal funding allowed them to operate as such. But now we're back to a situation where life-saving services need to, hold bingos and bake sales to try and remain open. And that's just not right.
The federal government has introduced a new round of legislation to improve airline passenger rights. It follows a record number of complaints from disgruntled travelers about delays, cancellations, and compensation. Sophia Harris has the details.
The transport minister says he's going to make it easier for air passengers to claim compensation for flight delays by putting them in the driver's seat.
It will no longer be the passenger who will have to prove that he or she is entitled to compensation. It will now be the airline that will need to prove that it does not have to pay for it.
The current rules mandate airlines only have to pay compensation up to $1,000 if the flight disruption was within the airline's control. Since the regulations took effect in 2019, thousands of passengers have filed complaints with the Canadian Transportation Agency, claiming they've been wrongly denied compensation. Now, the minister says he's closing the loopholes airlines have used to avoid paying up.
There will be no more loopholes where airlines can claim a disruption is caused by something outside of their control for a security reason when it's not.
The proposed changes include mandatory compensation for all disruptions with few exceptions, new requirements for delayed baggage and flight refunds, increased maximum fines to $250,000 for airline violations, and a streamlined CTA complaints process. Currently, the Canadian Transportation Agency is facing a backlog of 45,000 complaints.
Under these amendments, the CTA would clear air passenger complaints sooner by replacing its current adjudication process for resolving disputes with a simplified process.
There is a real possibility that we may see fare increases.
This industry spokesperson isn't happy with the proposed changes. He warns airfares could go up due to increased costs and that passengers may still experience long flight delays.
The announcement today doesn't address anything relating to improving the overall air travel experience for passengers, which is what passengers care most about when they go to book a flight. Nothing about airport infrastructure improvements.
The government says the new regulations will take effect at the earliest opportunity. Sophia Harris, CBC News, Toronto.
The strike by tens of thousands of federal public service workers entered into its 6th day today, and the Public Service Alliance of Canada is stepping up its strategy. The union is moving some of its picket lines to strategic locations, likely to add pressure on the federal government. It includes hampering access to ports. More than 155,000 members remain on strike across the country. Wage increase, job security, and remote work are the key issues. The labor action is affecting a number of government services, including tax returns, immigration processing, and food inspection. About 50,000 workers are deemed essential and are still on the job. The Dene High School in Loche will remain closed this week while a safety plan can be worked out. Today, our CMP confirmed there was an assault at the high school on Thursday and that a student and a teacher were injured and received medical treatment. This weekend, the mayor of Loche said a student was arrested after 2 people were stabbed at the high school. Georgina Jolibois said a student and a staff member were attacked and that a suspect was in custody. Minister of Education Dustin Duncan says the province will do what it can to help students, staff, and the school.
My understanding is that they've closed the school for the week and are assessing what they need to do to reopen the school next week to ensure that, first and foremost, the staff and students are safe, but also, if there are other things that they need to do in terms of support. So we'll be a part of that.
The provincial government says Mayor Jolibois will be in Regina Tuesday to meet with government staff and officials. Last week, Minister Don McMorris and the MLA for the area, Jim Lemig, were in the community. Japan's a big export market for our province, with more than $1.2 billion of goods from Saskatchewan going there last year. Today, the province signed a document to strengthen economic ties with the country.
Today's MOC offers many shared opportunities for learning and growth across all industries in both Saskatchewan and Japan.
As soon as possible, we would like to do the more business in Saskatchewan.
What was signed is called a Memorandum of Cooperation, and it was signed with the President of Japan Overseas Infrastructure Investment Corporation, also known as JOINT. The goal is to encourage JOINT to support infrastructure and investment in Saskatchewan. Priorities include helium development and mining practices. Saskatchewan's Minister of Trade and Export Development visited Japan in February, and the government set up a trade office in Japan 2 years ago. JOINT has signed similar MOCs with Alberta and British Columbia. The snow is quickly melting away. In fact, in some places in our province, it's already gone. But what the snow is leaving behind could be more harmful than you think. Our weather specialist, Ethan Williams, has more.
It may look like big piles of dirt, but what I'm actually standing in front of is piles of snow here at the City of Regina's snow storage facility. And with big piles like this comes a lot of garbage.
Concrete, bits of concrete that might get picked up, garbage that people might have left on the roadways, bits of asphalt. things that anything that someone might have put on the street.
But these piles don't just contain the garbage that you can see. In fact, research has shown that tiny pollutant particles can be found in snow too. Research from McGill University shows that snow acts as a superabsorbent. It can trap everything from particles of exhaust from vehicles to tiny pieces of metal to chemicals and organic compounds that are toxic to humans and our environment. And as these pollutants sit in the snow, they can change and create more pollutants, which can be just as harmful. But it's when the snow melts, like right now at the snow storage facility, that the pollutants are released, and that can really pose problems.
The pollutants either go through, follow the runoff into the oceans or Great Lakes, for instance. It could evaporate into the atmosphere, or it could percolate and completely pollute the groundwater.
In fact, other studies have shown that the oil sands have contaminated meltwater from snow, and even mercury has been found in samples of snow and ice in the Arctic. So your backyard may be hiding more than just old chip bags and face masks, but researchers say not to panic. Not all of the pollutants are harmful, and more studies are needed to find the correlation between the snow, pollution, and the impact on the environment. But researchers I spoke to say one thing is clear: more policies around air pollution and waste reduction will likely result in cleaner snow. Ethan Williams, CBC News, Regina.
Oh, and speaking of dirty snow, what's left of last week's snowstorm is on its way out, although some areas of the province do have more left than others. It looks like temperatures are slowly going to creep up towards seasonal as the week rolls on. Ethan will have more on what's to come in his forecast after the break. Stay with us.
This weather update is brought to you by Crestview Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, proud member of the Capital Automotive Group.
Our weather specialist Ethan Williams joins me now, and if you don't like the ground and the dirt that's left behind the snow, you can just look up. Because the sky has been alive.
Oh yeah, not just with the snow and the rain these past couple of days. We've had some beautiful aurora in our province, and we had a couple of videos sent to us by Dre Irwin in Regina. Didn't even have to leave the city limits to see this one. Very vivid, right above the city overnight, and he captured this time lapse as well. Look closely in the bottom left-hand corner. You can even see a few streaks of meteors from the Lyrid meteor shower that happened this weekend as well. But it was definitely the aurora that stole the show, especially last night, caused by a very powerful coronal mass ejection, that solar flare from the sun on Friday. Storm level of 4 out of 5. And the NOAA in the United States, which rates that, usually does not give it that high of a rating. It's only happened a few times in the past couple of years here, but we are getting closer to that solar maximum, and so aurora going to be happening more and more often. And even aurora as far south as Alabama in the United States is possible. It usually doesn't drop south of the U.S. border, but this one has been particularly strong. Now, in addition to the very nice things happening in our skies, we've had some very lovely conditions throughout south and central today, getting close to the 20-degree mark in southwestern Saskatchewan. Snow still on the ground in the southeast is pulling back temperatures, and you can see those spots on the map here in the darker greens, only around 5 right now in Weyburn, but still 17 degrees right now in Leader. And it is that warm air is starting to melt off the snow. You can see around Weyburn and Assiniboia, Gravelbourg, those kind of pink colors are around 20 centimeters that are still on the ground. A reminder, you got close to 60 centimeters in Weyburn over the weekend, or on, I guess, Wednesday through Friday last weekend, still amounts close to 50 on the ground in northern Saskatchewan. Breezy across the province today, especially in the south, gusts close to 50 in the southwest, and that's thanks to a low pressure system starting to move its way in from Alberta. Could get some mixed precipitation, maybe some freezing rain, a little bit of showers tonight in the northern grain belt and portions of the Churchill region before that low really starts moving in as we get through the day tomorrow. Rain showers at times for western portions of the province, and then that system really taking hold tomorrow night and into Wednesday morning, where it changes over to snow in northern portions, rain for the southern portion of the province early Wednesday morning. Then we get sunshine in the south through the day Wednesday as that system starts to move out. But wind gusts really going to be the story here. Gusts close to 50, maybe 60 both tomorrow and especially on Wednesday. The south of the province, on the south side of that system, that's where we're going to see those winds pick up, especially in the southeast. For Regina over these next few days, though, we are rewarded a little bit. We get a little bit of wind, but we are going to see a little bit of a warm up as well, and helping to further melt that snow. A little bit of rain possible on Thursday. Cloudy conditions on Friday before we get some clearing and double-digit temperatures. Saskatoon bang on normal tomorrow, it looks like, for both your daytime high and overnight low, but breezy conditions going to be a theme as well. But some sunshine and those double digits looking very nice, Sam.
They say April showers bring May flowers. What does April snow bring you?
May pain.
Thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
Well, the WHL playoffs continue, and it's a nail-biter for Saskatoon Blades fans as they prepare themselves for Game 7 against Red Deer. The Blades lost the first 3 games in the second-round series, then rallied back to win 3 in a row. The Blades escaped elimination yesterday with a 5-3 win against Red Deer. Now it all comes down to Game 7 tomorrow night at home. The Moose Jaw Warriors are also still alive. They host the Winnipeg Ice tonight in Game 6. The Warriors trail the Ice 3-2, so tonight they tie it up or they clean out their lockers. We'll be back after the break. The First Nations University of Canada held its spring powwow over the weekend, and it was the biggest one in years. The highlight of the event is the crowning of a new ambassador. Our reporter Louise Big Eagle was there to find out what makes it so special.
These 3 young women are competing to become the next Miss First Nations University of Canada ambassador. Each one makes a speech and dances in traditional regalia. 23-year-old Calissa Moser is from Fezerum, Nakota Nation. She is a Bachelor of Psychology student at the First Nations University of Canada.
I feel like this opportunity is really important for young Indigenous women because it gives you a voice and an opportunity to speak out and be a role model to other individuals like yourself and younger individuals, and kind of give them the inspiration to be a part of the powwow community and pursue higher education.
Kiana Francis is from Paipot First Nation. The 17-year-old goes to Miller High School in Regina.
I've already represented many different causes, events for other people, and so I'm pretty confident in myself, in the ability to represent and to do a good job at holding myself at high standards.
University student Morgan Bellegarde is from Little Black Bear First Nation. Her grandmother and family were in the stands cheering her on.
If I were to win, I believe it would open doors for me to keep trying new things, to keep just going and working towards my goals I have in life. And I feel it'll really positively impact me as an individual and as a student. I feel like it will encourage my higher education and just my personal life.
The winner receives money as well as support to travel around to powwows and communities. She will also wear a beaded crown made by artist Gary Gott. This is an emotional time for him as he once crowned his own daughter, but sadly, she died by suicide 6 years ago at the age of 14.
This is the 3rd, maybe 4th crown I've did for First Nations University powwow princesses, and every time it's always the same. It's very emotional. A little bit different here and there, but it's always emotional on their faces. And I can see by the looks on the runner-up, just so seconds before they announce the names, all that hoping and all that wishing and maybe a little bit of praying.
Last year's winner, Alexis Isnana from Standing Buffalo, Dakota Nation, was present to crown the new ambassador. And this year, it's Morgan Bellegarde. She says she's excited to spend the next year being a role model for Indigenous youth. Louise Big Eagle, CBC News, Regina, Saskatchewan.
A Canadian family is going public after a pair of high-end Nike shoes started to tear. They say the cleats, endorsed by a professional soccer player, should have lasted more than 10 weeks. Erica Johnson reports.
He's been playing soccer since age 3, dreams of joining the big leagues. Idolizes the legendary player Cristiano Ronaldo. So, when he endorsed a new pair of Nike soccer cleats last fall, Spencer wanted in.
He's one of the best in the world, and it was his last signature shoe that they were going to make with him.
Nike touted advanced technology, lightweight mesh for better ball control. But it's the star power that makes certain shoes winners, says this marketing prof.
Your peers are going to think you're special because you have these shoes on, and these shoes are going to make you feel better because they're his shoes.
Spencer antes up some of his own cash for the $400 shoes. His parents cover the rest. But just 10 weeks later, the left cleat tears open.
I was super frustrated because it just felt like a waste of money at that point.
They send the shoes back to Nike for help.
We've received your claim product.
But it's a missed shot. Nike says the torn cleat is not a result of a material or manufacturing fault.
I can't believe they offer a shoe that's $400+ and it falls apart in less than 3 months. It doesn't make any sense.
This cobbler says the shoe's split looks like a design issue.
Where the rubber logo was placed is exactly right at the bend of the foot. So while he is playing and bending his foot, the materials are sort of fighting against one another.
Spencer couldn't play with the damaged cleats, so his parents bought another pair of Nikes, shelled out another $400. But again, the shoes didn't last. In less than 3 months, both soles cracked. In a statement to go public, Nike said the quality and performance of its products is of utmost importance, and it believes the ripped Ronaldo cleat was a one-off. It had no comment about the second pair. Nike also reached out to Spencer's family about both pairs of cleats, saying they've scored a full refund. Erica Johnson, CBC News, Vancouver.
And Ethan's back with one last look at your weather.
And consistency is the word for your forecast in Regina and southern Saskatchewan tonight. Starting out at 1 with mostly cloudy at midnight, mostly cloudy conditions. Southeast winds around 50 kilometers an hour, around 47. And then as we get to the morning, still mostly cloudy, winds gusting close to 50 kilometers an hour. Temperature not moving much as we head through the morning hours. And then as we get to noon, still mostly cloudy, winds close to 50 kilometers an hour. We're at 6 degrees by this point, expecting a high of around 9. Saskatoon a little bit different. We're looking for some wet snow overnight, possibly with some gusty conditions. And we get to tomorrow morning, you'll be sitting still around 4 degrees. I think the snow will have ended by that point, and it's just a little bit of rain. And that rain likely going to be sticking around by the afternoon. But you will get to double digits. You will not be escaping the winds close to 40 kilometers an hour. So a windy day for pretty much everyone, Sam.
Well, hopefully the wind can dry up some of those fields. I know there's a lot of kids hoping to play soccer in the next couple of weeks.
That is starting soon.
Yes, thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
And before we go, a movie theater in Alaska had a surprise visitor recently. Staff watched as a moose wandered into this cinema southwest of Anchorage. It walked in without a ticket. A door had been propped open for fresh air. But like with most moviegoers, popcorn was definitely a big draw. And in the end, the animal wasn't too interested in staying for a show. After snacking a bit and looking around, it quickly made its way back outside. Imagine that was quite the surprise for the staff. That is it for us tonight. For News Anytime, you can always head to our website or subscribe to the CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel. Ethan will be back with more local news at 11. We're back tomorrow at 6. Thanks for watching and have a good night.